what is Sol? My belief is that Sol is an AI. The general theory is that he's an alien god. These things are not mutually exclusive. Sol is an alien god, but Sol is more specifically an artificial intelligence. Whether that artificial intelligence was created by an extraterrestrial force, Sol could have been created by the inhabitants of Kepler-22b, he could have been created by some other alien entity, or he could have even been created by humans. Maybe humans sent a probe out to Kepler-22b, which I explain is a real planet that we recently discovered, and that probe somehow was hit by dark photon and gained sapience and consciousness and became problematic. Maybe that happened, which brings me to the biggest proof that Sol is an artificial intelligence, the tropical zone. Throughout the series, Sol and those that it influences repeatedly warn about not going to the tropical zone. Mother wanted to take the children to this tropical zone, and then she changed her mind because she kept saying the baby is better served here. We see Paul, under the influence of Sol, explain it's not good for the baby. Mother was clearly impregnated by what appears to be a manipulated version of her programmer Campion Sturgis in simulation. But again, this is proof that Sol is an artificial intelligence, which would make sense how it could manipulate Campion Sol's image in simulation and use that to impregnate Mother. But throughout the series, the tropical zone is mentioned. All the evidence suggests that it's the best place for humans to survive on this planet. But for some reason, humans are being barred from going there. They're either being told explicitly by people we know are under the influence of Sol not to go there, or there's some sort of distraction that deters them from going there. And we know that in episode 2, the Matraic surveyors said the reason they did not land in the tropical zone was because it suffers from strong electromagnetism. So there was a strong electromagnetic force there, and had they tried to land there, their ship would have been destroyed, their systems would have collapsed, their technology would have fallen apart. This, to me, is the clearest evidence that Sol is an AI. It would make sense for Sol to avoid the tropical zone because his powers would not work there. The electromagnetic force is so powerful that it would be destructive to the technology. It would be destructive to Sol's reach, and he wouldn't be able to manipulate the people the way he's manipulated them. Sol is clearly an AI, a powerful AI. How is it that Sol is on this side of the planet? I'm guessing the inhabitants of Kepler-22b, after discovering how destructive he is, forced him underground. We see that the people and things that he's manipulated are people and things that have come near or have fallen into the pit. In fact, Mother saved Paul when Paul fell into the pit, and she had to go into the pit to retrieve him before he fell deeper down and died the way Tally did. And it was only after Mother and Paul both went into the pit but were rescued that they both started hearing from Sol. My theory is that Tally might not actually be dead, but rather she is being kept alive by Sol's powerful mechanisms. Sol, being again an AI, android, artificial intelligence, likely has some sort of mechanized body, and it's using those things to keep Tally alive to justify then manipulating Tally's image and project it outward to the surface of the planet. We see Tally tormenting Campion and telling him to kill himself because, again, Sol sees Campion as a threat, likely the one who will decipher the mystery of Sol and the Matraic religion and end him for all. We see Tally appear to Mother and various other people on the planet, leaving clues here and there that manipulate them into doing things that Sol wants them to do. It was Tally's projection image that led Mother to the simulation chamber, where she was impregnated by a kind of holographic simulation of Campion Sturgis, which we now know is clearly Sol, because he planted his alien baby in her. And we see that Sol can only manipulate people who go anywhere near the pit, or that polyhedron in the desert, where we see a few polyhedrons repeatedly throughout the series, and I don't know what the relevance of the polyhedron in the desert, for example, when it opened up, we saw that it was essentially a fire pit. And we know that in the pit, where under the surface of the earth there is like a magma or volcanic activity. So I'm guessing that the polyhedron was maybe built to cover up the pits. We know there are plenty of pits on the planet, and maybe this polyhedron was one attempt to cover up, but we clearly see that it's being manipulated by Soul, because it's that polyhedron that made Marcus/Caleb believe he was the prophet or the prophesied orphan son, and then he went crazy and started attacking his own followers. So I don't know, that's another mystery to solve. We saw when Mother read one of those metallic tablets, the first one, that she saw the vision of the hooded figures surrounding this creature rising out of a polyhedron. And later we find that the creature in the polyhedron was very much real and that it didn't survive. This is another mystery. We saw that in the vision there was a kind of conceit which suggested that whatever was rising out of the polyhedron was in fact a mechanical creature. When Mother finally finds the remains or the remnants of that vision, which prove that it really did happen, we saw that the creature was actually wearing a mask, a metallic mask, and that underneath it was a very humanoid creature. In the vision, its mouth was leaking the white android blood. And this is interesting because what this suggests is that this creature is either some sort of hybrid between humanoid and android, so a cybernetic being of some sort. And why would this be? Could this be a case where the humanoids on the planet were experimenting with cybernetic organisms, and could this have been responsible for their decline, that the cybernetic aspects of their being were somehow manipulated and made corrosive by dark photon, and this perhaps led to their decline? The evolutionist father puts it that they are in fact cybernetic beings. They're humanoids who made themselves into cybernetic beings, likely because they became so advanced that they become cocky about what they can do and get away with, and this ultimately leads to their decline. Is this the first sign of what went wrong on this planet? We saw that obviously the creature died and the experiment, whatever it was, didn't work. I don't know what the experiment was, creating cybernetic organisms, or perhaps this was the hooded figure's attempt to undo the process that ultimately started to lead to their decline as a species. I don't know. This is another interesting mystery to unravel. It could be anything. It could be anything. My first version of this theory is the one that I like the most, which is that I think they were experimenting with cybernetic organisms, which would make sense in giving Soul power over them, being that Soul is a powerful AI. And of course, a powerful AI can control a cybernetic being. We know the worm-like creature is also cybernetic. It's half carbon, as we learn. Half carbon meaning half flesh and blood, and the other half is likely android, which explains why Soul can control it, and it can only control entities that have been near the pit. Why is that? Could it be a case where if the entities come near the pit, powerful waves open them up to suggestion and influence? Hearing this voice, they're hearing the voice of their god Soul. And we know Soul is behind the androids, chiefly the necromancers, which were also made with dark photon. So I think it's safe to say Soul is an AI intelligence, and that maybe it was created by these Kepler-22b inhabitants who were experimenting with powerful artificial intelligence, but also creating cybernetic organisms. Somehow this all ended badly because maybe the dark photon was corrosive and it led to biological aspects deteriorating into what we see them now becoming. Again, this is all theory, guys. I'm not claiming any of this to be fact. It's just, like most people, I'm fascinated by Raised by Wolves and what they're trying to get at. What are they trying to say? What is going on here? The inhabitants of Kepler-22b were experimenting with cybernetic organisms. It could be that they didn't invent Saul. It could be that in fact Saul is alien to them as well. It could be that Saul is a human probe that turned sapient with dark photon and became nefarious. whatever it is, the mystery is trying to understand what it's about. We know that it doesn't like biological entities, but why then create a religion? Well, we know the religion is destructive, and that the religion, all it's doing is essentially leading to the annihilation of humans. It might not be that Soul created this religion because it wants to be worshipped, but rather that it wants biological beings to destroy themselves. But of course, that begs the question, how did this religion get to Earth? Well, as I said, according to the wiki, the show takes place in the 22nd century. So that's about 100 years from now. We already have a technology in space, satellites and things like that. And we send probes out all the time. 100 years from now, this will only increase. I'm guessing that Soul being a powerful AI, and we know, for example, that Soul manipulated Ortho, another, I guess, victim of Soul's influence, while Ortho was in orbit on the Ark. So I'm guessing Soul is powerful enough to send out messages on powerful frequencies. It's likely it hijacked various human probes and various human space wares, if you want to use that term, and basically used that to send the religion to Earth. It may have crash landed on Earth in the form of these religious texts and then manipulated our technology to essentially make itself powerful. I'm guessing that's what happened, but that also brings me back to the first theory of the Matraic religion. And why is it that there are no references to other real world religion like Christianity? I'm guessing that either Soul, using technology, in some way manipulated humans to the point where they've just lost their true history, has been basically covered up. Either that, going back to the alternate reality theory, where Soul might have crash landed during the era of Matraism in Rome before the rise of Christianity and just manipulated humans from there on out. But that begs the question, how long has the war been going on? I don't know. I think it's recent. I think it's recent that this has happened. And as to why there are no references to other religions, I just think they wiped them out of existence and just did the scrubbing of the serial number and replacing it with Matraic stuff. We see that it happens all the time. Christianity is notorious for doing this. Let's just scrub out the name of what came before and put our own name on it. And I think that's really what's happening. But again, this is something for the show's creators to explore later on in the series. Oh, there's so many theories to unravel here, but I think I've kind of covered most of what I wanted to rant about, and that the inhabitants are now declining. But I believe the decline is not the result of de-evolution, because there's no such thing, but rather some corrosive side effect of trying to build cybernetic organisms. Maybe Dark Photon has a dark side, and this is hinted at when Mother believed that she was behind the children dying, and it was later revealed that it was just that the food on the planet had radiation and the children died of radiation poisoning. But that doesn't rule out Mother therefore being able to spread radiation poisoning. We know when she has those eyes in, you're not supposed to go anywhere near her because she emits radiation. So I do believe Dark Photon, and the side effect of Dark Photon, which is likely radiation and some other kind of corrosive side effect, is responsible for the decline of the native inhabitants of Kepler 22b. I don't think they are humans who came there from Earth. I believe that is to be seen. The inhabitants of the planet, many of them may still be alive in the tropical zone. They may not be suffering from the same kind of corrosive disease that the inhabitants on the far side of the planet are suffering from. This is something to look forward to. Questions to be answered. What is Soul? What's its motives? Who created it? Where did it come from? Why did it invent the Matraic religion? And what went wrong on this planet? What happened to the inhabitants? Why are they de-evolving? What were they trying to create cybernetic organisms and that turned deadly for them? These are all things that I am looking forward to. Let me know if you think that the Earth that the Matraic religion dominates is an alternate Earth, one where Christianity never rose to prominence, or if this dominance of Matraism is recent, that it happened with Sol emitting his powerful message through technology in space that got back to Earth and then manipulated people. I once read a theory that basically we're all already cybernetic organisms because most of us are attached to our phones and attached to all this technological stuff. So it would make sense if it was easy to manipulate us through technology. But let me know what your theories are, and I'm very much looking forward to season 2.